colleagues and on this work. So Stenolemus is a group of assassin bugs that are emisines, and they're often called the thread-legged bugs, often because of these distinctive long skinny legs that they have, which we think probably helps them hang out in spider webs. They do all sorts of things in spider webs, from just hanging out and laying their eggs to stealing prey from the spiders, to even eating the spider itself. As you can see on the left here, it's eating the resident spider. So this is a kind of a weird behavior for an insect, because usually spiders are the ones that are eating the insects. And so it seems like a particularly dangerous place to hang out for the assassin bugs, particularly when you consider a really common spider like this cryptochaea that you can see here, that can also catch and consume other dangerous spiders like this trapdoor spider here. So it got us really thinking about how these Stenolemus bugs manage to, first of all, hang out in the spider webs without being detected and recognized and eaten themselves, but also how they actually catch the spiders to eat them. And so Stenolemus is a really widespread group. You've probably got some near you hanging out, and they've got a high rate of endemism. And the group that we were really focusing on were the Australian assassin bugs. So most of this work has really focused on two species in particular, so Stenolemus bituberus and Stenolemus giraffa. And I'm going to be focusing mostly today on work that has been done with Stenolemus bituberus, with a few kind of sidelines and general principles in there. So Stenolemus bituberus has a fascinatingly wide range of spider webs and spider prey that it will go after. So you can get a bit of a hint at the sorts of diversity in spiders that will go after from these images here. So you've got everything from three-dimensional web builders to these quite large two-dimensional sticky web builders. And this is quite an amazing feat, because often spiders themselves have trouble navigating these different types of silk and these different types of webs and these different sizes and behaviors of spiders. So how does Stenolemus bituberus in particular manage to invade so many different types of webs? One thing that we noticed straight off from our field observations was that they have two main predatory tactics. They have stalking and they have luring. So here we can see 5 of the more common spider species that bituberus tends to go after. And in the white, we've got the proportion of hunts that were successful that use the luring tactic. And in the gray, we've got the proportion of hunts that use the stalking tactic. And you can see that with different species of spider, they tend to use different ratios of these tactics. So that may be the first kind of hint that we have that these assassin bugs are adjusting their tactics to suit the sorts of spider prey that they're actually going after. So if we take each tactic in turn, so we'll talk about stalking first, and then we'll talk about luring. And when they're stalking the spiders across the web, and the real aim of the game is to avoid the spider either detecting or recognizing the presence of the assassin bug in their web. Mostly because if they do detect the assassin bug, then it's highly likely that the spider will either firstly run away and escape, and that's a waste of time for the assassin bug, or even worse, the spider could actually turn around and attack the assassin bug itself. And we have seen quite a few instances where the assassin bug has been caught and eaten by the spider instead. So how do they stalk across the web? Well, one of the first steps to stalking across the web is to actually reach the spider. And so if you're in a three-dimensional web in particular, that can be kind of tricky, because you're going to have all of these silk threads in the way. And so the assassin bugs manage to break the silk threads, and they do this very carefully. So the assassin bug here has broken the silk thread, separated it, and then let go of one side and then the other side of the silk. And by doing this carefully and slowly and letting go of one side, at a time, this reduces the amount of vibrations that the assassin bugs are generating that can warn the spider that there is a potential enemy in its web. So that's kind of one of the first things that they tend to do when they enter the spider webs, this skill of breaking the silk threads. The other thing that we noticed when we were watching Stenolemus in these spider webs is they have a very particular characteristic way of walking. So you'll see that they bounce while they're walking, and they also don't just step straight onto the substrate. They tend to tap their legs. So if you watch the leg here in a minute, we go tap, tap, tap before placing their leg down on the substrate and inching forward. Now together, these footsteps, this characteristic tapping behavior of the assassin bugs, we think is helping break up the characteristic vibrations that get generated by footsteps in the spider web. The first thing that we did, though, was we really focused in on this bouncing behavior by the assassin bugs. And we noticed that they bounced more and they stepped more in the presence of wind when they were hunting the spiders out in the field. So we thought, okay, well, maybe they're using wind as a form of smokescreen to mask the vibrations being generated by their footsteps in the web as they approach the spider. So we decided to test that. We did that by presenting assassin bugs while they were hunting a spider with periods of noise and periods of quiet. Now, the noise, there's two different types of noise. You can either have noise from vibrations from prey struggling in the spider web. So we simulated that with a 200 hertz sine wave, which kind of overlaps with the vibrations being generated by prey as it's struggling in the web. Or you have the vibrations that's generated by wind in the web. And so we set up a little fan and simulating a gentle breeze out in the field. And then we compared the number of steps that the assassin bugs took when hunting the spiders in the spider web, when there was this noise present versus when there was no noise present. And we can see straight away that there's not really any difference in the stepping of the assassin bugs when there's a vibration present, so one that's simulating prey struggling in the web. But when there's wind in the web, they take many more steps than when there is no wind present. And so that suggested to us straight away that, okay, cool, this is a really strong indication that they're using wind as a smokescreen to mask their steps in the web. But is this really a predatory tactic? So if this is a predatory tactic, then we would expect that if there is noise present in the web, they will be more likely to catch the spider in the presence of these smoke screens. So we tested their success rate in the presence of noise as well. So here in these figures, we've got in the white, the times when the bug abandoned the hunt. And in the gray, we've got the proportion of times where the bug actually successfully killed the spider. You can see it's pretty similar between the vibration, the sine wave, and when there was no noise present. So that doesn't seem to be being used as a smokescreen to capture the spider. But when there is wind present, we can see the success rate is very much greater than when there is no wind present. So we concluded from that, okay, the assassin bugs are using wind as a smokescreen to mask their footsteps, which also increases their prey capture success in the webs. And there's something qualitatively different about wind in the web versus vibrations in the web. So with the vibrations, it's a very single point source of noise in the web. And spiders are very good at localizing vibrations in the web. And so it's likely that the spiders are they find it very easy to tell where one vibration is in the web versus where the vibrations from the assassin bug might be in the web. But wind is a much more widespread source of noise in the web. The whole web is going to be moving when there is wind present. And so that we think is a much more effective smokescreen for the assassin bugs when they're stalking these spiders. Okay, so that's some of the tactics that they use when they're stalking across the web. What about luring? So luring is where the spider actually comes towards the assassin bug. So they don't have to stalk it across the web. They bring the spider to them. And if you watch the video very closely here, you may be able to just see the assassin bug plucking the silk, whether it's raptorial forelegs, and the spider responding down below. Notice it's tapping the spider and then catching and killing him. So we'll come back to that tapping behavior in a moment. But the obvious question is, why does the spider approach the assassin bug? What is it that's making them go, oh, okay, there's something interesting over here. I'm going to be attracted over to it. So if we watch the assassin bug's behavior, you can see that this luring behavior is comprised of the forelegs plucking the silk both with one foreleg, with two forelegs. It's stretching the silk. It's really manipulating, and all of those manipulations are going to generate vibrations in the web. And what sort of vibrations might the assassin bug be mimicking in order to lure the spider over? So what sort of things do spiders approach in spider webs? So we set up a few possible models for this mimicry. We had two types of prey. We had Drosophila struggling in the web, and we had aphids struggling in the web. Now, out in the field, it's a messy environment. You can often have debris falling in the web. And so something like a leaf falling in the web might also be something that spiders could approach because they want to clear that debris out of the web and make it clean again. So they're more likely to catch the prey. So that's one other possible model. And another possible model is courting males. So males, you can see the male up here. This is a different species that we're using in experiments, but it's good for getting an idea of it. The males are plucking the silk, and these vibrations, the females often respond to by approaching and entering a characteristic copulatory position. But again, this is a sort of vibration that spiders approach in the web. So this was a possible model for our assassin bugs. So we measured the vibrations generated by each of these possible models and compared them to the vibrations generated by assassin bugs in the web. Now, for mimicry to be established, we need two things. The spiders, first of all, need to respond to the assassin bugs in the same way that they do to the models. So they have a behavioral similarity. And they also need to sound similar. So let's go through the behavioral similarity first. So here we have each of our models, and we're comparing that against what the spiders do to the assassin bugs. So each color represents a different response by the spider towards that particular vibration. So with the assassin bugs, they tend to either orient towards them or they orient, pause, and then approach. That's quite similar to their behavior to the two types of prey in the spider webs. Note though that there is a subset of vibrations that the prey are producing that induces a really fast, direct, often quite aggressive approach on the part of the spiders. When males are courting in the web, the spiders, in this case only the females, enter this characteristic copulatory position. It's completely different to anything we see in any of the other models. And when leaves are falling in the web, they often just don't respond at all. Sometimes they'll approach, but often don't respond. So going by the behavioral responses of spiders, we can say that their responses to the assassin bugs are really similar to what they're doing when there's prey in the web. But what do the vibrations sound like? So up the top here, we've got the waveform of a vibration that's being produced by an assassin bug after it's plucked the web. Now, if you look through all of these other waveforms, if it looks similar, then it pretty much is similar. If you look at the two prey vibrations here, so we've got one from an aphid and one from a vinegar fly, they look really similar to what the assassin bugs are producing. So that's a really good indication that there's some overlap, there's some mimicry occurring there. Now, there are subsets of prey vibrations that are quite different. So the impact vibrations, so when a flying fly or a flying aphid comes along and it first hits the web is going to have a really high amount of displacement. And that's going to create this really large high displacement, fast transient vibrations that are quite different to what the assassin bugs are producing. Now, when the insects are also beating their wings, trying to escape, they also produce quite different vibrations to what the assassin bugs are producing. So it seems like the assassin bugs are mimicking a subset of vibrations that are a little less exciting to what some of the vibrations being produced by prey are. So these are safer vibrations to mimic. It means that the spiders are going to come in a little bit slower, and that's going to be a little bit safer for the assassin bug. They don't want the spiders to come rushing in really quickly because that is very dangerous for them. They're more likely to get injured or even killed in those instances. With the other models, most of those models are also quite different to what the assassin bugs are producing. So the leaf impact is quite similar to prey impacts. The male step could be regarded as quite similar to what the assassin bugs are producing. But the males are also producing these characteristic stridulations, or what we call shudders in the web. And those vibrations are being produced consistently throughout their interactions with the spider. And we think it's these vibrations that are really distinguishing the males out from prey. So you may remember from the behavioral responses that the spiders respond very differently to males courting in the web to how they respond to assassin bugs in the web. And we think that these vibrations are what distinguishes them. So this experiment allowed us to establish that we think that assassin bugs are mimicking a subset of safer prey vibrations that draw the spiders in slowly in such a way that they can actually capture them safely or relatively safely. Now, you may remember from the luring video that we mentioned that the assassin bug tapped the spider just before killing it. Now, this is something that also happens in stalking. So here we have the assassin bug on the left, and if you watch the antenna, it's actually tapping the spider with its antennae. It starts with the legs and moves slowly in further towards the body of the spider. Now notice the spider moved a little bit then. So it is actually aware of something there, but it's not running away and it's not turning around to attack. I never get tired of watching that. I don't know why. So we were really interested in why the assassin bugs tap the spiders. It seems like quite a foolish thing to do. You've just spent all of this time stalking the spider, making sure it's not aware of your presence, or you've just lured the spider in. Why not just grab it and kill it as quickly as you possibly can? Now, we have a few hypotheses and we're still testing some of them, but one of the ones that we've tested is that this is actually a way for the assassin bugs to reduce the aggression of the spiders. So in order to attack, the assassin bugs have to move over the spider so that they can insert their rostrum, their proboscis into the spider. This is quite a dangerous position to be in. You're in close proximity, often to a spider that's much larger than you, that's often quicker than you, and often quite stronger than you. So it would make sense to have some sort of behavior that will reduce the probability that the spiders are going to respond aggressively to any kind of accidental movement that the assassin bugs make as they're moving into position to attack. So in order to test this, we first of all needed a stimulus that the spiders would reliably attack. And a 256 hertz tuning fork seemed like a likely thing. So you can see the spider immediately responded to the tuning fork. It's wrapping it up. They often try and bite it. The second thing we needed was a way of simulating the assassin bug's tapping. And we spent a lot of time trying to replicate tapping in assassin bugs. And we finally hit on the low-tech solution of getting the hair of a dog. This is the hair of my dog, Koa, who happily donated it. And we used it to tap by hand the hind tibia of the spider 10 times. So if tapping by assassin bugs lowers the aggression of these spiders, then we would expect that spiders that have been tapped like this would respond less aggressively to the tuning fork, something that they usually attack, compared to spiders that have not been tapped. And so when we ran this experiment, we have a control here. So this is where they've just been presented with the tuning fork. And you can see that a lot of the time in the white, they're just straight out attacking that tuning fork. If they don't attack it, then they at least are responding to it in some way. The sham tapped control is a control that we used where the hair of the dog approached closely to the hind leg of the spider, but we didn't actually touch it. And so that's controlling for near field movements that might get generated either by the assassin bugs or by us. And we can see that these sham tap spiders responded similarly, usually very aggressively compared to the control where we're just presenting the tuning fork. But when we tapped the spiders, we saw a marked decrease in aggressive responses in the spiders. So a lot of the time they did not respond at all, or if they did respond, they either retreated or they just oriented towards the tuning fork. And here we've got a video that shows what it looks like. So we've got just the last few taps because it takes a while to go through each one. And you'll see in a moment the tuning fork will appear. So we've got the last tap. Tap the tuning fork. And you can see the spider doesn't really respond to that. So that told us that it's highly likely that tapping by assassin bugs helps to reduce the probability that the spiders are going to respond aggressively to them and dangerously to them while they're moving into position to attack. So overall, we've got a series of really amazing tactics on the part of Stenolemus in order to hang out and prey on the spiders that they're eating. So we see use of smoke screens, we see stalking and luring tactics, and this prey tapping tactic. And what we're doing now is we're trying to test a few other hypotheses around prey tapping, but also have a look at how generalizable about this behavior is. So we've only tested this with one species of spider. We want to look across the range of prey spiders that assassin bugs are going after. And isn't even a more basal response in spiders, because spiders can't go around attacking absolutely everything that comes near them. They might end up attacking their siblings when they're young. They might end up attacking potential mates. And so it may be a much more basal response that this assassin bugs have tapped into to exploit. So on that note, I'd like to thank all of these wonderful people that have been involved in these experiments over the last few years, and of course, our funding bodies and you guys for listening. Thank you.